All right, Shecky, let's get into this. Nick's going to have to edit this video just here a little bit. But now that it's not choppy anymore and I can see you in your great hat and your fedora, and you never wear a hat, but I appreciate that. Hey, one of the biggest compliments you can give to us is if you hear us say something smart, intelligent, or bewildering, type in tweet or the Facebook, post it. I'm going to tweet that one out. Give Shecky a props or a high five. Follow us. And hey, one of the things I always tell people is remember, every Sunday we talk about a new training tip that Shecky publishes over on our blog. I'll put the link back in there as well, too. And then every Wednesday we have a breakout session talking about the content of misfortune in the follow-up. So Shecky, let's get back to this originally. We talk about every Wednesday, what are we going to name our training? So we know the training today is about follow-up through email, through retargeting, other methods of following up. But why were you so adamant when we talked about misfortune in your follow-up?
Well, it's just because I see too many people, just missing out on a lot of money and a lot of, opportunity. It's like, look, you're gonna hang out with us so that you can learn how to do ads, and you can learn how to do retargeting, and you can learn how to do all this cool, sexy stuff with pixels. And then you have basically, 3 emails in your follow-up, right? So you're not asking often enough for the sale. You're not providing enough other things for them to buy. You're not providing different kinds of versions of things to buy. You're not providing enough value. And it's like, and then you go, well, people aren't buying my shit. Oh, my stuff. I don't mean to cuss, but people aren't buying my stuff. It's like, well, look, if you opted into some, random lead magnet, we've all done it, right? And somebody sends you 3 or 4 emails and you don't happen to buy because maybe when the email comes in, you're on the phone with your mom trying to get her to log out of Facebook or whatever the situation is. And email 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 never come, right? I got news for you. That's not because they're not buying your product. It's because you are not offering them enough opportunities to get to know you, to get to like you, to get to trust you, and to buy your stuff. You probably do have a viable product, but you're not giving your own product a fair enough shake, right? So there's a couple. You got to nurture it a little bit.
You really do. Now, there's 2 words I want you to write down. And, Shecky and I have spent a lot of time in the last couple of weeks with distinctions, right? So if you're not familiar with our format, and if you're here for the very first time, like I said, I put a link over here for the blog that we go through, and Shecky and I talk about a subject matter, and then we do a breakout session where this is held on a webinar where we really break down distinctions around keywords. For example, like when we're running people into the funnel, what should our welcome page be or landing page, and how do we start attracting people over or give them content and information? What does a conversion mean? Not like, is it a sale or an opt-in, but what's the next logical step in the sequence? Now, one important distinction, Shecky, you made in last week's training and the week before is the distinction that you have for conversion. And I think the language was pretty close around to it's the next logical progression for that person to make a decision to move to that next step, whether that's an opt-in, whether that's a buy. So what's interesting is if we've really focused on our targeting, we talk about the Profit Factory, the 12-step process to where we can quantify all of our marketing in our funnel. If we've really spent a lot of time quantifying our avatar, our targeting, our affinity marketing, our landing and welcome page, well, now our follow-up is pre-qualified clicks because we know our perfect audience, and follow-up through email. So, Shecky, you've talked to hundreds of our students, right? I'm sorry, there's 2 distinctions I want to make sure that we follow up with. In service, how can I be in service to my people, right? Of service or in service, number 1. And how do I make sure I'm not a disservice to my audience? 2 very important distinctions. We're going to make a lot in this upcoming week's training as well, too, okay? Because it's really important. Because if you made an offer once to a qualified avatar, but they didn't opt in or they didn't buy, doesn't mean they're going to say no forever. So are you being in service if you don't follow up with that person? No,
you're not.
You're actually being a disservice, right?
Yeah.
So here's the other thing. Is it really, are you in service for someone if you send them an email for 30 days, but you don't allow them the ability to take action and move forward, buying your products or service? Is that an in-service or disservice?
Well, I think it's a disservice. And I think, you bring up an interesting point. I think where people really get hung up is they get into this whole mindset of like, I don't like to sell, right? So that as a result, even if they built out a really nice 30-day email sequence, and we're going to talk, by the way, on Wednesday of actually how to sequence your emails too, because that's part of the follow-up process.
Yeah.
But what they'll do is they'll go, okay, look, here's who I am, confirm your email address. I'm going to be sending you some cool information. You send some cool information. There's one offer to buy. And then it starts going like once a week after that. And it's like, hey, this is kind of cool. Came across my desk, whatever. They just kind of run out of things to talk about, and they run out of things to talk about because they're not focused really on providing value. They're not really out there looking around, and like there's so many great tools. Like even we talked about BuzzSumo, for example, as a way to go out and see what's the buzz going on surrounding certain keywords. So if your product obviously relates to certain keywords, that's a way to find out over the last month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, all the different articles that actually got a lot of traction, or in some cases even went viral surrounding those keywords. Well, if they got traction or went viral, wouldn't that be something that's interesting to your audience as well, right? And if truly you believe in your product, right, then you should want to offer them to buy that product more than once, maybe 3 times, maybe 5 times. I mean, there's what's the old adage? I know I learned this from your partner, the rule of 7, right? Like people typically don't make a decision to buy, or at least some sort of commitment, until they've had 7 exposures. Now, that's not necessarily means every single one of those exposures is buy, but there's nothing wrong with writing an email that's got like a whole bunch of value to it and putting a soft sell into the PS. I mean, that's still an offer to buy your product, right? And those emails actually can do very, very well without you going, oh my God, you have to buy this. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? So I think, we start running into people's, it's like the blocks, it's the belief systems. Like, do you not believe that your product's good? And do you not? And if you did believe that your product was good, maybe you wouldn't have any issues with offering it to people multiple times. I don't know. I just think there's some block there.
So Shecky, let's go through a little bit easier scenario, or I don't want to say easier. Let's go through an easy scenario that I know that you have lived in previous lives in. So here's a couple of things to remember. We kind of talk about just a little bit that people are afraid to sell. Do I send too much content? Not enough content? Am I only sending people back to a sales page? Remember, one of the key words I always tell you, or key phrases I should say, is long-term scalable predictable income. So Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, they all want to make sure that you have relevant content. So sending them all over to a sales page all the time, or all over to the opt-in page, that's not really being of service to those people clicking on your ad because they want to find out just more information. Now, some of them will make a quick buying decision, but if you want to have that long-term scalable predictable income, you got to have relevant content. So Shecky, in the past, one of the things that you have done and done quite well at whenever you want to dip in and out is selling cars. You have past life with that, right? So let's talk about the sales process and really how it's completely different on Facebook. Meaning, on Facebook, you get to target your specific avatar. This is why we talk about in the Profit Factory that we make sure that you go through the very first step is really focusing on your avatar, right? The next is who we're going to market to, and we start looking at affinity audiences. So when it comes to selling cars, Shecky, I know that you have picked up the phone in your years of experience before and called cold leads. How do you like picking up the phone and calling cold, unqualified leads to buy a car?
Are you trying to get me to commit suicide right on camera? Is that what's going on here? Because I don't know how we got onto this whole car business cold call thing.
Yeah, when you're cold calling people don't want to sell anything. It's really hard. But Shecky, let's turn it the other way around. One of the things that you used to oversee at a big dealership here in Austin, what about when someone calls in and they're like, hey, look, I'm looking for a 2014 Cavalier with less than 70,000 miles on it. If it could be blue, it'd be awesome. If it had tan interior, it'd be great. Could you help me? What are those sales calls like? Even if you don't have the car in stock, so they're not able to buy right now, but what are those leads like to work with?
Well, it's a lot different, obviously, because this is somebody responding to an ad, and the reality is in the car business too, and this also is true in almost all selling, is you might have a customer that thinks that they specifically want that blue Cavalier. But at the end of the day, they're really looking for transportation, and they're looking for a really good buy in relation to what they can afford, either whether they're paying cash or payments or whatever. They're looking for something that's just the right fit with budget, image, all these other kinds of things.
So the very first time they contact you, you mean that's not what they're asking you for is not exactly what they'll buy?
It's almost always not exactly what they'll buy.
That's
right?
what I was looking for. Could you explain that process? This is super important for the follow-up process.
Well, because it's interesting that you talk about the car business. As much as I hate it, I did well in it because I understood certain principles of selling and marketing, right? And so the goal of that call, that somebody, let's just go to that Cavalier, let's go down this road a little bit, was to get them on the lot. That's the only thing you got to do is get them on the lot, right? It's like, I don't know if I have that exact car, but I've got 3 that are so ridiculously similar. What time can you come in, right? And so how does that relate to online marketing, right? It's the same thing. It's like they may have opted in, right? It may not have been exactly what they're looking for, but now through your follow-up, through your retargeting, through your emails, you want to get them on your lot. Well, the analogy to getting them on your lot is really looking at your stuff. It's interfacing with you. It's reading your emails. It's seeing, using retargeting and using further ads, because what ends up happening is now there's exposure, there's familiarity, there's comfort. And the reality is, look, I mean, I knew that every single person that came on the lot didn't hate me. They just hated car salespeople in general. They're a hated bunch, right? And I will tell you that there's probably a lot of people out there that hate internet marketers to a certain extent too. So the only way that you are going to overcome that is with familiarity. That's the only way you're going to do it, right? Because look, I'm a great guy, and I know I'm a great guy, and I've got a very, as you can attest, Kurt, I've got a pretty damn healthy self-image, right? But at the same time, I also recognize that not everybody's going to love the Shecky, right? I mean, most people do, but not everybody's going to.
You're a unique individual, Shecky.
Thank God for that, right? So
we all agree with that one. Thank you.
So there would be people that would come on the lot, and I'd go out and shake their hand, how you doing, whatever. And there's just always that maybe 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 that it's just like, man, we're not clicking, And I started getting better at recognizing that and going, you know what? I'm unsubscribing you from my list. It's like, there's no point. You're never going to freaking buy a car from me. So why should I waste my time? Right. And people get so hung up about unsubscribes and all that. You and I both know, Kurt, we love unsubscribes, right? It's like, get the F off the list, right? Like if this is not totally like, we're not jiving and all that, then great. Go be on somebody else's list and do something, because all you're doing is just taking up oxygen at this point.
Well, I mean, it's like one of the reasons that you're wearing the hat this week, that some people, heard the comment that somebody made a couple weeks back, somebody who had followed us for a year and a half. And they're like, wow, for all your success, you have poor lighting, your cameras aren't perfect, and your mic isn't perfect. And I'm thinking, you spent 18 months on our list. Like, we've had people, their careers, their businesses, like, have just taken off. And you're criticizing me because I wore a hat. So Shecky never wears a hat. By the way, literally, this is the first time I have ever seen Shecky in a hat. And I've known Shecky 6, maybe 7 years.
Yeah, I'm not a hat guy.
No,
but I'm wearing my hat in defiance of that dude. It's not that dude. I am wearing my hat in defiance of all the assholes who choose perfection over value.
Shecky, high five. Or right. What we like to say is perfection over production, right? Like I always tell Shecky, and I'm like, hey, Shecky, let's do this, and let's see if we can some stuff up or break some stuff. What do you mean?
And honestly, Kurt, I got to give you kudos to you too, because when I was newer to the internet marketing game, I definitely leaned way more to the perfectionist side. Now I don't really give a rat's ass, to be honest with you. And it's like, okay, let's do it. Let's break some shit and see what happens, Yeah. But so I learned and it's a great lesson for everybody out there. And it's true, even as we talk about this thing called follow-up. Go out and break something. I mean, your emails don't have to be perfect. Let me ask a very, very simple question to everybody that's watching this, right? Somebody opts onto your list. Let's just use email for the sake of argument for this form of follow-up. There are many, but let's just use email. Somebody opts onto your list and you send them 4 absolutely stellar, amazing emails that really highlight your product, that give a lot of value, whatever, okay? That's scenario A. Scenario B, that's a B, is your emails suck. I mean, they're just like, hey, here's what's going on, blah, 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 blah. But there's 40 of them, right? They're all pretty lousy, but there's 40 of them. There's not 4. Who's going to make more sales, A or B? Right? I can assure you it's B. Abso-freaking-lutely every goddamn time. Pardon me, I'm really got a bad potty mouth today. But
you're never like that.
It's the hat. I'm feeling defiant. I don't know. So, but I just think, like, look, just get out there, put some stuff into your autoresponder. If you're not sure, if you don't think the article's perfect to retarget to it anyway. Just get your stuff in front of them. Look, the article I wrote this week, honestly, it's not one of my best. It really is not. I've written some amazing articles, but this week is not one of them. But you know what? Let me put it out there. You know, it's got some good lessons in it. I borrowed something from Napoleon Hill, so it couldn't really be that bad. But you know, just get your stuff out there and continue to just keep your name, keep your message, keep your stuff in front of you, in front of your tribe. Because if you don't, guess what? One of the things that we started talking about last week, and we're talking again big time this week, is the new currency of what's online currency, right? The new currency, as Gary Vaynerchuk so aptly describes it, is attention. It's not your email list. It's attention. I don't know if any of you have noticed this, but the internet today is a little bit bigger than what it was 3 or 4 years ago, only like by 500x. Okay, so just in the last 3-4 years. I mean, you can go and look up these stats, right? So what that means is that we're all vying for attention. If you have the opportunity to capture somebody's attention and capture it over and over and over again, you are kicking ass on your competitors. Because if you're not doing it, I assure you their attention is being drawn somewhere else. They're going to be on the internet anyway. They may as well be looking at your stuff. I'm done ranting, by the way.
This is good. Somebody just asked, hey, what's the variation? The one, perfection over production. We always focus on production over perfection. We always say, hey, let's screw some stuff up so we at least get the process going. So I want to go back, and we were talking about the car dealership here for just a minute, Shecky. I think, you know, one of the things is where I talk about, you know, in service and it being a disservice, right? So when you set up your targeting right, you know, you set up the like campaign. If you go through our social media ad genius training, if you set up your avatar, you set up your right targeting, you're not going to have people who are just going to call you up and say, hey, I want to buy a car. What can you tell me? I can't check in. I know there's a car dealership. It's not going to happen because you've already spent time with your right avatar. What happens is if you don't focus on your avatar. Now, you'll see inside of our training, inside of our social media ad genius training, you'll see that we always encourage people to start running a like campaign. And it's not for social proof. It's to early qualify or quantify your audience. You can do the same thing with running retargeting pixel strategy. We talked a lot about that in our last week's breakout session. We're going to talk more about it in this upcoming week, Aaron. But what you're looking for is, which I want to drive back home to the point where Shecky would say, where I said, hey, if someone calls up and says, hey, I'm looking for this exact Cavalier. Shecky said most of the time, that isn't exactly what they wanted. They thought they knew what they wanted, but through some additional education and options, they end up getting something else. So one of the things that I like to always mention is Match.com along the same principle. You know, Match.com has released a study that talks about that what people enter in that they are looking for, it's not what they're clicking on or looking at. It's completely different. But Match doesn't know until you start getting, until you start clicking on pictures and images and finding out what you like, what you don't like. So what we say misfortune is in the follow-up is because a lot of people will only have 3 emails to follow up with people in a funnel, 7 emails, and they stop following up. Well, if Shecky was to stop following up with people who only wanted that exact Cavalier, it wouldn't have sold any cars. So what's interesting, Shecky, is let's just say, I mean, let's be honest. When you were at the dealership, it's commission only, right? So all these guys are commission only. How many follow-ups do you think it took for you until you sold a car versus did most of the other salespeople use that exact same follow-up process? Did all the salespeople follow up 5, 7, 10 times? Or is that what kind of set you apart? Just kind of curious.
The ones that only the good ones were the ones that followed up that many times. And, you know, we would sit in sales meetings and the sales manager would just repeat the mantra over and over, buy or die, you know, and like, you know, they would take new guys and just say, you know, look, you're going to keep calling this guy back until he's either bought something else or he's dead, right? So some of these people would get 20, 30, 40 phone calls. And I don't know, I just lost you, Kurt. I don't know if you're still there or not, but
it's been detected.
But it's, I lost you. I think, can you say something?
Threat has been detected.
Something detected. I don't know. I can kind of hear you. Anyway, to finish this thought while we're here, I would love it. It's the same thing as an unsubscribe. So I would love it when somebody would say, I bought something else, right? And because it's great. I know that that's the die, right? We're done. I don't have to continue to waste my time following up. It's the same thing when somebody unsubscribes from you, right? Anyway, I think we're having, again, more technical difficulties. Stand by, everybody. Anyway, are you guys, everybody that's on this Blab, can somebody type into the chat box what you're seeing? Like, are you seeing me? And if so, can you hear my audio? And I don't see Kurt at all, and I'm not hearing Kurt. So, well, here he comes.
I'm right here. Sorry about that.
Yeah, there we go.
There was a link that someone had placed in here. I thought it was a resource, and unfortunately, it was there's a link, so I deleted it. Sorry about that. Got caught.
Okay. So anyway, what I was saying was that it was a buy or die situation. And I liken that same thing to an unsubscribe. It's like if I had to call somebody 6 or 7 or 8 times and I would just get to a point where I would just become numb to it. It's like, hey, you know, just following up. Want to see if you found anything. Want to see if you need any help, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Now, just to be clear, when you were doing that follow-up process, right, and you said it was kind of a buy or die, right? Let's use very clear language here. I know a lot of the times, because I've been in sales for a long time, I know a lot of the time we would call and follow up. And we're like, oh, but let's be honest. How many times out of 10 was someone annoyed that you were following up with them?
The only annoying time came after repeated times and, you know, like you've left messages and phone calls and they finally, some of them just don't have the balls to tell you what's going on, you know.
But here's the thing. At least, Tom always says this, at least you got a decision, right?
Oh, yeah. That's what I was saying when your audio was off just now. It's like if you, the person that says, hey, look, Shecky, I already bought something. Thank you very much. Or, you know, we found something somewhere else or whatever it is, the big blow off. I would go, yes, thank you. Because now I have closure, right? And it's the same thing what we were saying earlier about being thankful that somebody unsubscribes. Why? That's not my guy, right?
Which is perfectly fine. So the other thing is when we're talking about the follow-up is you originally said they most likely don't take that same car. So if we look at patterns, like what I talked about Match.com, so we have to be of in service to follow up with those people until they at least make a decision, right? Because I'll tell you, with my personality, Shecky, you worked with me long enough, I get busy. I don't answer text messages or some phone calls. I get really focused on stuff. And it doesn't mean that I'm ignoring you. It doesn't mean that I don't appreciate you. But you'll call and be like, okay, I don't have this Cavalier, but what I have is I have A, B, C, and D. And I know you wanted this, but I know I got this. And then I wanted this. Oh, my goodness, I'll call back and be like, oh, thank you for following up. I know I haven't returned the last 4 phone calls. I was traveling, and it's just – and then I was sick, and then blah, blah, blah. But thank you so much, Shecky. How many times did you ever hear that from someone where they didn't return 2 or 3 phone calls, and all of a sudden they're like, Shecky, this is exactly what I wanted. Or they called you out of the blue and bought something from you months later.
Yeah, it does happen. I wouldn't say it's months later, because once people start getting hotter to buy, then they, if they need something, they just need something, and there's a difference between that person that's just, out tire kicking because they've got nothing better to do. But when it's the same thing with people on your list. If they need something, you continue to show them that need, that follow-up. They are going to buy something if you're satisfying the need.
That's what I wanted to focus on as one of the distinctions, one of the keywords, the need. So if you're only educating the customer, and for instance, like you're talking about, like with us, the profit factory, right? If we're only talking about, hey, here's a 12-step process to show you with any online funnel how you can be successful if you set this up the right way, why would people need that? They don't really understand the need, right? We get a lot of customers who come in and watch our Blab and stuff like this because they're like, look, I have this product, service, or idea, and I just want to get it to the world, and I know I can make money at it. I deserve it. I know that I can make money at it.
Sure.
They don't know their exact process. So we always have to keep on uncovering a need. And Shecky, this is why we're doing these Blabs every single week, right? To fulfill a service of how can we discuss topics in a live format where the public can see it. We have public content, and of course you have the blog. Then we do the breakout session. So we're in service, we document the process. And then if someone wants to see all the recordings, the entire 12-step process, what buttons to hit, what to do, all the specific strategies, then that's what we sell inside of our membership section. So whenever they're ready to join the social media Ad Genius family, it doesn't really matter if they decide they want to join now or watch a couple of Blabs and get to know us. It's all in our follow-up. So would you mind just talking about just for a minute? So we talked about the car dealer service of like, people not knowing what they wanted when they ordered, they thought that they did. So now that you're on the digital product side of stuff, now that you've been working with Black Box digital products, now that you've talked to hundreds of our students, what do you see in comparison to the follow-up process? We know that very few people follow up, but where do you think are some of the biggest missed opportunities with people following up in their online funnels that most of the students you talk to now are just simply not doing?
Oh my God, that's such a big can of worms.
What would be the top 5 opportunities?
Well, first of all, I think that people are not doing stuff that is congruent to their nuances of their avatar. So, like, for example, you brought up an interesting point about just using like campaigns to qualify an audience, right? Well, we talked very early on in this whole process about affinity audience. So I think we can all assume, like, for example, let's look at social media Ad Genius, right? We teach people how to be successful advertising online and all the nuances thereof. But we know that within our giant avatar, there are some sub-avatars, right? We know that there are solopreneurs at home, right? We know that there are actually mompreneurs, female solopreneurs at home with kids, right? We know that there's some bloggers. We know that there are people that own brick and mortar businesses and they're just trying to promote some of their stuff online. So we've got a bunch of different stuff. Now, if we didn't write articles or create content that spoke to those specifics, then we wouldn't be able to attract all those different sub avatars. So that's one of the things I see is some real big incongruence, right? It's kind of like you and I were joking about it the other day. It's like, we were talking to that person that wanted to hire us, and they're like, well, who's your avatar? Well, my avatar is everybody that just wants to make extra money.
I heard that today.
This is like, really? Like, I think that represents about 7.5 billion people on the planet. So could we dial it in just a little bit more than that? I mean, it's like, duh, everybody wants to make more money, right?
Remember this one statement, everyone. Please write this one down. By the way, this breakout session is going to be great. Nick, if you don't mind putting in a link, or Shecky putting in a link from this, is, one of the greatest things that you can do is in your follow-up process is to provide the right information at the right time for someone to make a decision. Everybody's like, it kind of makes common sense, but how exactly do I do that? Well, Shecky, if we go back to your scenario that you were talking about, is there's some solopreneur moms, there's some entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, there's some small business owners. So how could they position our content? Well, they might not be able to watch an hour-long Blab where we talk about this, but a stay-at-home mom who's on a budget, who may just want to know some of the basic information so they can get started and they can help their friend out and get their toes wet. That's great. That works for our avatar. Now, what we find is by providing new content, we find people who have multiple contacts with us, and they'll say, hey, I saw you and Shecky on a Blab, then I watched a webinar. At that time, it wasn't right for me to join. But then 3 weeks later, you guys did this webinar where you talked about retargeting. That was the one missing piece. And then I really understood why I wanted to join the Social Media Ad Genius family. So one of the things that that we used to really focus on, this was honestly a lot of last year, in a little bit of the year, well, really in the year before, 2015, 2014. How do we attract more people over for our program, Social Media Ad Genius? We show people how to advertise on Facebook. And we got lots of great testimonials. But then when I really started taking a look at things, it was, well, wait a minute. We've run millions of dollars in Facebook ads. We've seen funnels of 6, 7, 8-figure companies. Got even a company, a 9-figure company. Like, we have a lot of insight into funnels and how general traffic is run. So wait a minute, it would be more of a service if we documented each step of the process when we worked on these major launches, these major ad campaigns. They're the same principles that the avatars can use that we were just talking about just a minute ago, Shecky, the solopreneurs, the small business, the mompreneurs. So what we're doing in practice for our ad agency, where we're spending millions in multiple different niches, we're able to share with you the exact same information. But as we're learning, we're producing new content all the time. And as we're producing new content, we're keeping our customers happy now. Because here's the one thing, Shecky, that you said is you said that you might not talk to someone months later in the car dealership business because if they have a need, they want to solve that need. So remember, if they're looking for your products and services, the sooner that they purchase from you also means they're going to buy additional products and services down the road, as long as you write this down. Your marketing will sell your product. Shecky, you've heard me say this lots of times before. Your marketing will sell your product, and your product will keep people from refunding. So if you have a perfect product, right, doesn't matter. No one will ever see it until they swipe their credit card. No one will ever see it. So if you have perfect marketing and you sell an imperfect product, I mean, Shecky, you worked with me long enough. Some of the trainings that we've put up, they're half put together, but we clearly communicate that to the audience up front. And we say, hey, look, once you're inside, tell us what you want. And that's what we're going to build. We don't build the perfect product because we don't know what it is, because only you, the customer, knows what that perfect product is, or when it's time for you to buy. So Shecky, typically, out of all the hundreds of students we talk to, just so people have a point of reference, typically how many days is someone following up with their avatar if they opt in? If they enter an email lead, out of all the students you've talked to, on average, how many days are they following up with people?
I would say on average it's 5 to 7. Okay. I mean, 5 to 7 days, and they're like, that's good. And you bring up an interesting point too, and I kind of want to just kind of talk about this, is that a buyer, because one of the things we're going to talk about much more deeply on Wednesday is this distinction of the kinds of people that are in your tribe, right? So there is a pretty big difference between a person who read 1 or 2 of your articles that's not even on your list yet versus someone that actually opted in and gave you permission to be in their inbox. That person is also, we want to make a distinction between them and somebody who's already bought something from you, right? So you're talking about extremely different levels of interest in what you have to offer and extremely different levels of trust in you. So we're going to talk a lot more about that on Wednesday. I've got a lot of things to share with you on Wednesday about that, but it's interesting that you bring that up.
Shecky, if you don't mind, I have somebody who's calling in, and typically, I like to take Q&A and some call-ins. So I've actually read about this individual. So Paul Terry Wallace, I hope I'm enunciating that right or pronouncing that right. He's actually a fellow Austinite here. And he's done some pretty amazing things on Twitter. If you take a look at his Twitter link, Shecky, I'll send it to you in our Skype. But I'm going to bring him out here. The main reason is because his insight, his profile is Original King of Twitter, according to State BuzzFeed, Salon, and the New York Times. So he's really seen a lot of trending information, especially in social media. So if you don't mind, Paul Terry, I'm going to bring you out just to say hello, and I'd love your perspective. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to hit accept in here. Let's see if it just calls in.
Yeah, I'll tell my stream. I just told more than 500 people I'm here. That hope that's okay.
Well, I appreciate that. I know I've read about you before, and I've seen you in what they call the social media history books. Even though social media is really not that old. So
same here. I've seen you. I've seen your name. I've seen your tweets. I've seen everything. And I know you're in Austin, like I am. I know you're probably a Longhorn fan. Yeah. Right.
Yep,
yeah, there
absolutely.
You go. You live in a luxury pad there. It's amazing.
Downtown. So I'm really curious. We're talking about the misfortune and the follow-up. How did you ever get into Twitter in the first place? Like, how did you ever jump aboard that very early on?
Well, at the time, I was working as the IT guy for the San Jose Hotel. You've heard of that, right?
Absolutely. I know those guys.
Congress. Yeah. What a job. I'll tell you, man, that was one of the most interesting IT jobs I ever had, because I was a one-man IT department working for Liz Lambert and taking care of the hotel, both Joe's Coffees and all that. And I've been going to South by Southwest ever since it started. And I guess this was around 2006, 2007. So I was at South by, and there, lo and behold, they've got these flat screen TVs all over the convention center with Twitter on them, So I thought, well, I guess I'll sign up. I guess this is the hot new thing, because here it is, South by, it's on the screen. So I got on there, Scoble got on there, Leo Laporte got on there, Dvorak got on there, all the old guard heavy tech heavyweights got on there, man. So that's how I got written up in the New York Times as the king of Twitter. Now it's highly debatable whether I was in reality king of Twitter with all those other guys in there, that I bow to. So anyway, that's the backstory.
So I'm really curious. I mean, you've seen the evolution of Twitter. You've seen social media really change businesses. So what do you think is in a business follow-up? So for the trends that you've seen businesses use social media for follow-up processes in the last couple of years. Love to hear your opinion.
Can you kind of rephrase that? Because I can't really get a hold of that question.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that Shecky and I were talking about is the misfortune and the follow-up. So, like with Twitter, we're talking about some paid traffic as well too. So like Twitter and Google and Facebook allow you to follow up with retargeting and allow you just to follow up with customers that you've acquired either on Twitter or on Facebook. And Shecky and I were talking earlier that most people, they just don't follow up properly, or they stop their follow-up process way too soon. So I'd love to hear any insight or thoughts that you have on businesses and their follow-up processes for using social media to follow up with potential customers.
Yeah, most businesses fail miserably when it comes to follow-up because they think that Twitter's a broadcast medium. And really, Twitter is something that should be used on the fly. I mean, you should be able to know your network to the extent that you should know, say you're selling, selling a hardware product. Let's say you're selling lawn sprinklers. If somebody tweets on Twitter that, I need to get my sprinkler one out. I need to go to the hardware store and get a new sprinkler. You should be able to connect with that person while they're en route in their car, heading to the hardware store to get the sprinkler. So it's all about monitoring the network, picking up the right keywords, and then connecting. It's not just a broadcast medium, because it fails if you're just trying to figure, well, I'm just going to broadcast all this stuff out there and I'll start selling sprinklers. Man, you got to intercept the buyers going to the hardware store looking for the sprinkler and get them to tweet at the appropriate time.
It's interesting
if that answers your question or not.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people miss the opportunity of where they can follow up with people. I know one of the things that I used to show clients in our local space here is it's like, look, people will actually write, man, I'm hungry for pizza. And you can actually find who just sent that. You can actually tweet them back very quickly. Great. We have $10 off at Austin Pizza.
Right. I mean, yeah, people you know, people, let's go out for, you know, somebody says, let's go out for coffee, you know, and they got their geolocation on there. So, you know, they're within a mile of Houndstooth Coffee. So all of a sudden they get a tweet, hey, Houndstooth Coffee, 10 cents off on your next cup, you know.
Chucky and I love Houndstooth Coffee. We've spent a lot of time on coffee.
Yeah, so do I.
Oh,
I'm in a condo at 18th and Lavaca. Where are you in Austin?
I'm right across the other side of the river over by the Hyatt.
Oh, by the Hyatt, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You probably see my condo from where you are.
Probably. I have a beautiful skyline here. I love it at this place. Yeah. We have, so Shecky, it is at the top of the hour. I have a call here at 4 o'clock too. Paul Terry, it was great. Do you like to be called Paul Terry, PT? What do you?
You could call me Paul Terry or PTW or PT or Paul or any of the above will work fine, Kurt. Do you have a middle name, Kurt? Do you have a nickname or a middle name?
No, Shecky would say I have a nickname, but that's
I'm not touching that one.
I'm not touching that one at all. No, this is pretty much it. Yeah, I appreciate you just coming on out here. And Shecky, we have I know you put the Webby link over here for you guys for our breakout session. We're going to have, we're going to talk all about the misfortune of the follow-up and how to properly run your follow-up process through retargeting ads. And I mean, Paul Terry was just talking about some great tips, especially just on Twitter to engage with people live. I mean, it's really, if you know where to look, the gold is in the hills. And the Shecky just wrote in last week's blog article, 3 feet from gold. A lot of people just don't realize that it's only a couple more steps to follow up with people real time to really help those conversions as well too. So, Shecky, any other parting words or besides everybody telling you?
Paul, it's nice to connect with you here. I think you and I maybe are friends on Facebook somehow. I know we know a lot of the same people, and but pleasure to have you here, and thanks for jumping on with us. It's a
I'll
nice
make sure that both of you are on my Twitter, Austin and Blab lists here, so I'm going to add you right now for sure. No, I'm not following you, Jeff, but I am now. I just followed you on Twitter.
Cool.
I'll put you on one of my lists here.
Cool.
It's great. Kurt, loved it, man. We'll have to meet up at Houndstooth Coffee or something.
I'd love to do that sometime.
I'm hoping for Medici.
Medici. Yeah. That's a good one. That's right. That's a block from my condo, the Medici Coffee House.
That's my favorite.
On the drag. All right, I'm gonna remove myself and have a great one, you guys. I'll let you wrap it up here. All right.
So, Kurt, to answer your question,
one small point for you before you close on out. I love Austin. You get some of the greatest people who just all of a sudden just show up someplace. Yeah. And a lot of people don't brag about themselves, but that was really great. That was really great for me.
I've connected with him somewhere before, and he's a good guy, and he knows his stuff, and so it's a nice treat. But anyway, Wednesday, oh my God, like there's so much meat in this training coming up Wednesday. I mean, we're talking about list segmentation. We're talking about all the different media types and ways to follow up. We're talking about, splits of how much, what percentage of your ad budget should go to retargeting based on those segments. I mean, this is, we always hear those words deep dive. Imagine doing the deep dive, hitting the bottom and then digging through the sand underneath the surface, below the bottom of the water. That's how deep a dive this week is. So I really want to encourage everybody to attend Wednesday. And, if you can't make it live, catch the replay. Obviously, if you're a Social Media Ad Genius member, part of the family, that will stay in your back office forever. But this week is pure gold. So Kurt, I thank you very much. And I'm very excited. I'm sorry we had some tech issues at the start of this thing, but it turned out okay after all. It always does.
Not a problem. So again, hang on. Looks like I got another call. Hang on 1 second. So Shecky, I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. You guys, the link's over on the right-hand side over there to register for the Webby. This breakout session is going to be absolutely huge. So make sure you sign up for it. I mean, it's really, most people stop at this follow-up process. We're going to show you how to extend it. Remember, really the next 4 to 6 weeks that we're going to go over this new content and information, it's really going to be big because we're going to show you how to dramatically increase the lifetime value of your customer with your follow-up. So I got I got to run here real quick. Looks like I got a call I didn't realize. Shecky, I appreciate you and love you. Great job last week, by the way. Remember, everybody join the webinar, and you're going to want to join it live, which is Wednesday, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. I will be on top of a mountaintop with 100 world-inspiring entrepreneurs. Could not wait to tell you about it when I'm there. All right, buddy. See everybody.
All right,
Thanks.
see you all.
Have a great day. Take care.